بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه تسليما. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another installment of our Ya Ayyuha Alladhina Amanu series. So I'm looking at Ayah 172 of chapter 2. And in this particular ayah, we're going to focus on food and consumption in Ramadan. Allah Ta'ala reveals, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu kulu min tayyibati ma razaqnakum washkuru lillahi in kuntum iyyahu ta'budun. So, O you who have attained to faith, eat of the good things which we have provided for you as sustenance, and give thanks unto Allah if it is truly Him that you worship. So in this ayah, we're going to look at two things here. Tayyibat, and what it means to thank Allah Ta'ala, and how to really think in a very intentional way about food during Ramadan. You know, after a long day of fasting, I think all of us look forward to iftar. And one of the commentaries on this particular ayah encourages us really to think about the spiritual dimensions of eating. And again, the book I referenced, The Call to the Believers in the Clear Qur'an, Nida al-Mu'minin fil Qur'an al-Mubin by Sheikh Ahmed Fathullah Jami, one of the things that Sheikh says is that the hukum, or the ruling of eating, can be anything from mubah, permissible, to mandub, recommended, to wajib, obligatory. And I want us to bring those elements together in Ramadan as we break our fast. The Shaykh says that when we as Muslims eat, we should think about consumption in terms of not eating based upon desire or instinct necessarily, but eating based upon the commandment of Allah Ta'ala, and then making sure that what we consume is pure, it's tayyib, it's good, it's halal, it's wholesome. So let us kind of think about this in terms of our iftar in Ramadan, looking forward to that meal at the end of the day, but also being very mindful of what we consume, how we partake of that. Are we sharing? Are we contributing to the community? Are we kind of increasing sort of landfills? Like, what are we actually thinking about when we break our fast? So when we break our fast, let's think of it in terms of the wajib, because absolutely at the end of a long day of fasting, you have to eat and drink. You have to take care of yourself. You have to replenish yourself. We follow the prophetic sunnah and we hasten the iftar, the breaking of the fast at Maghrib time. So that's like the mandatory, obligatory part of it. But the other part of it is, when is this, or how is this mandub? Like, how is this recommended? And I think the recommended aspect of this comes in terms of, it's recommended to do this kind of in a community. It's recommended to share. It's recommended to find things to help people to break their fast with, dates and water. You know, it's recommended to think of others at this time, to make dua. So it's not just about in this moment of I'm really hungry, let me break this fast, let me satiate my hunger, let me quench my thirst. But let me think of this in terms of my own needs, the needs of the community, pleasing Allah Ta'ala. And then the next piece of this is, how is this also mubah? Like, how do we bring all these different elements together when it comes to consumption and the rulings of consumption? Well, the mubah part, and this is largely what we see concerning eating, that a human being can decide to eat or not to eat, right? That this ayah, "Kulu min tayyibati ma razaqnakum," it's not necessarily a command, but it is Allah Ta'ala giving the believer permission to eat. But keep in mind that a ruling that is called neutral or permissible or mubah can always be elevated beyond that to where we get the reward of a sunnah or a fard, an obligatory action, by our intention. So if the intention is just to get some calories and keep on going about your business, that's fine. But we want to elevate it to where the intention is, let me get this energy and this fuel that I need so that I can be the best believer, that I can worship Allah Ta'ala. I can go to this Taraweeh prayer. I can, make sure that I'm taking care of my family, encourage everybody to come and join the community in congregation. So next time you reach for the dates, the water, the milk, that really lovely pink beverage that our Desi community has during iftar, ru'afza, every time, you reach for those things, I want you to think kind of beyond, this is just my habit to do this, and how could we really make this a very meaningful act? Then the other piece of this, and I'll kind of, end on this note, is think about the connection, and there's always a spiritual dimension here. Think about the connection between the food itself, the source of the food, and our dua. There's a very famous hadith of the Prophet that you can find in the Arba'in Nawawiyah, where the Prophet, peace be upon him, in hadith number 10, he recites this ayah and another one, and the Prophet gives us this image of a man who's traveling, and the man is dusty and dirty and disheveled and tired and exhausted, and he raises his hands up in dua. But then the Prophet notes, because keep in mind, traveler means instant acceptance, right? However, the Prophet notes that in this case, it's not instant acceptance of dua because the Prophet says, وَمَطْعَمُهُ حَرَامٌ وَمَشْرَبُهُ حَرَامٌ وَمَلْبَسُهُ حَرَامٌ وَغُذِيَ بِالْحَرَامِ فَأَنَّى يُسْتَجَابُ لَهُ. That in that case, all of the sustenance, like the man's source of food, drink, clothing, and livelihood is all unlawful. So how is his dua accepted? So, like I said, let's make sure Ramadan is that opportunity to be a better believer, to heed and pay attention and answer that call of Allah to the believer, and also look at what is the source of what we are consuming. Let's make sure it is the best and most halal, most beautiful source possible so that our dua is accepted. May Allah Ta'ala accept from all of you all. Thank you so much. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala barakatuh.